is the piece of the program that really dealt with the topic of UAPs and incursions into controlled U.S. airspace.
Now,
I don't have a clue for where they're from or what the intent is. That's not a secret, and it shouldn't be a secret. I don't think physics and the mathematics should be a secret. What I think should remain a secret is our critical technology. I will tell you this right now, that if I had to choose between disclosure and full disclosure and sacrificing our national security, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't sacrifice our national security for that. Now, is there a way to have a conversation where we can still have disclosure and protect national security? Well, that's precisely what my colleagues and I are trying to do. We're trying to thread that needle very carefully. None of us want to compromise national secrets. None of us want to hurt this country. But what we do want to do is get that information that's not classified, that information that does squarely belong to the people of the United States and potentially the world, but certainly your taxpayer dollars were paid to find answers, and now we have some answers. You deserve those answers.
There's a follow-up question from Blake and Brent Cousins of Third Phase of the Moon, the world's largest UFO YouTube channel. How far advanced do you think private corporations have in technology? Do you think Lockheed Martin may have developed a Tic Tac? Has Lou asked Lockheed what assets they have in their possession?
Wow. That's a really good question. Let me answer this this way. Have we asked? Yes. I'm not going to tell you what the answer is because part of that answer requires approval from certain organizations and military contractors, and I'm not at liberty to answer on their behalf. I've made it very clear what I said, and I went right up to that line by saying, when I was asked, do I think that the U.S. government is in possession of this exotic material? And I said yes. And I stand by that. But at this point, I really can't elaborate much more beyond that, only because this is still unfolding. And what we don't want to do is, I mean, the truth be told, the last thing we want to do is to scare the gopher to go back into its hole. It's just now poking its head out of the hole. And we're trying to coax it, saying it's okay to come out. It's okay to have this conversation. So, what I don't want to do is preemptively say something that all of a sudden forces the gopher to go back underground for the next 70 years.
Now, Michio Kaku thinks these are possibly extraterrestrial drones. Do you think that there's possibly a pilot inside? Has any attempt been made to contact these craft? Or is that classified still?
I just don't know if I'm qualified to answer that.
Gotcha.
Look, Dr. Michio Kaku might be absolutely correct. And by the way, let me say for the record, I really applaud his position and his willingness to at least have the conversation.
Yeah.
Science is always
years ago. Years ago.
Well, most wouldn't. And science, the true spirit of science is questioning the mysteries of our universe, right? And questioning the preconceived notions and ideas that we have. So I just want to take just a moment to publicly provide my appreciation to Michio Kaku and a few others like Avi Loeb, who are willing to have the conversation. That's a big deal. And I think we need to encourage that type of dialogue between scientists and our academic communities. Now, are they possible that these are probes? Sure, absolutely it is. Yeah. But is there also indication that these things may have something or someone inside? Possibly, yeah. Is there anecdotal evidence to suggest that? Well, there's Well, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, fair enough. You said more than I expected, honestly. Now, I believe the last episode you did of the History Channel, forgive me for the title that I don't recall, someone asked you about a sighting that you potentially had and you couldn't answer. Is that because of security, national security, or is it just don't want to go there at all yet?
It's multifaceted. I've said this for the record, and I'll say it again. And I know some people don't like when I say this, but my opinion doesn't matter. What matters are the facts and what the data says. I'm always very careful to interject my observations because at the end of the day, it's subjective. There's no way to prove it. There's no way to quantify it or qualify it. So what matters to me is what I can see and pick up and record on military sensors, and the eyewitnesses of trained observers and pilots and whatnot, and radar data. That to me is better, because then I can actually provide information such as telemetry and velocity and altitude and things like that. Just telling you my own personal experience, that's like asking anybody on a Friday night at a local bar, who's your favorite football team? I mean, you're going to get a different answer from everybody, right?
Yeah.
And they all think they're right. So
yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I'm not sure that my personal observations really matter. They're just that, they're personal, and I don't want it to skew our ability to collect data. I don't want people to come up, well, Lou said this, and therefore it must be. There's this community, this UFO community is full of people like that already, that are make a pretty good amount of money telling people what their opinions are, and I don't want to be one of those guys. I'd rather just provide you the facts and the data, and then
let us make the opinion.
Allow you, the jury, to make that decision. I've always said that you as a lawyer, you can appreciate this, but my job as an investigator is very simple: collect the truth, speak the truth. And my job is to collect the evidence, preserve the evidence, and then provide it to a jury. And in this case, you're the jury. Your audience is a jury. My job is just to provide you the data, and then you make the decision. It doesn't matter what I feel or what I think about something. What matters is what the data suggests and what it means to you.
I got the final question from Third Phase of Moon. How far advanced do you think the U.S. government or private corporation are in advanced tech that the public is not aware of? The B-1 bomber was classified for 40 years until the public was aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advanced tech. I'm not going to go into it right now. That's certainly not my place to do that. But the U.S. government and other countries are always trying to maintain a competitive advantage over their adversaries, and we should. I think that's money well spent. We have a tremendous amount of advanced technology in this country. Now, if you're asking the question of if that was a derivative of some sort of UAP, the answer to that would be, unfortunately, that type of vehicle would be very, very advanced, and it should be no surprise that if let me give you an example. It's a bit like imagine an aircraft, a 747 that crashes in the Amazon, and everybody escapes. They jump out of the plane with parachutes, and everybody's fine. But the plane crashes, and a indigenous group of people from the Amazon who've never seen human beings outside of their own little, if you will, village, come across bits and pieces of this aircraft. And they find glass from the cockpit, and they pick it up, and they realize the glass can be used to skin the meat from their kill much easier, right? So they reverse engineer the glass, and they're using it now as a tool to cut skin away from the meat, right? That's not the intended purpose of the glass, right? And there's no way they're going to recognize that, how to rebuild a 747 in the middle of the Amazon. But it doesn't mean that there isn't bits and pieces that can be picked up and certain things gleaned from that. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case. I'm not going to speak on behalf of our government what it has or has not done. But that's probably a better analogy when answering that question. Do we have the skill sets needed to even study and investigate something like that? Well, we're now beginning to realize that the physics probably lies within the realm of quantum physics. We still don't understand it very well. So there's probably a lot more we need to learn before we could figure out how to reverse engineer something like that.
The example you said with Amazon, I'm going to steal the example that Bob Lazar said. Take this iPhone, drop it in the wagon trail days. They can have an unlimited budget. They wouldn't come close to even figuring out what it is, let alone powering it up.
Right.
Impossible. Now,
well, you need an entire infrastructure, right? You need an ability to charge the phone, right? You need an ability to do a lot of things with that phone. You need cellular service for the phone to work, and you need GPS if you want to use a GPS. And there's these multi-billion-dollar industries set up for every single one of the capabilities on your smartphone. And unless you have all of those in place, chances are you're not really going to be able to utilize it very well.
Now, what are you currently doing? Because you no longer work with TTSA, right?
I am no longer affiliated with To the Stars Academy. That is correct.
So what can you talk about what you're doing with your colleagues to further the truth to get to where we want to get to, which is seeing the facts?
Yeah, well, I think that will probably become apparent here at some point in the future, but we are working very hard, very diligently behind the scenes. We are engaging our friends and colleagues, both in the legislative side and the executive side of our government. We're also engaging the media and foreign countries to stimulate the conversation and facilitate that conversation between our country and theirs. We're doing a lot of things to help us pursue this initiative. There's 5 pillars of emphasis. I'll restate them again of what
the 5 variables,
doing.
right?
No, not observables. No.
Okay.
There's also happens to be 5 areas of think of this as a military or an intelligence campaign. What we are doing is very deliberate. It's very, very methodical and has to be synchronized. So, and very well coordinated. So in essence, the first pillar of emphasis is legislative engagement, which is where Chris Mellon comes into play, making sure that our elected officials know this is a good conversation and it's okay to have this conversation. And then the second pillar of emphasis is executive level engagement in our executive branch. So department heads and secretary level, letting them know that this is a national security issue and they should pay attention to it. Right. And to hell with stigma and taboo, because this topic isn't going away. The third area of emphasis is foreign government engagement, engaging our friends and allies, putting them in contact with the right people here in Washington, D.C. for them to get more information and perhaps start sharing information that they may have on this topic with us and vice versa. The fourth area of engagement is media engagement, and that is engaging mainstream media so they know it's okay to have the conversation as well. 3 years ago, nobody in their right mind would have touched this conversation.
It's been very tough for me for 9, believe me.
And
3, ever since December 2017, all of a sudden things came easier.
Right. And so the fifth area of emphasis, which is probably the most important, last but certainly not least, is public engagement. Exactly what we're doing right now, because ultimately, if the public says it's okay to have this conversation, then Congress is going to follow. They're going to do whatever the constituents tell them what to do. Our government's going to find it easier to spend money on it, and the media is going to report on it. So and what you don't want to do is give one side more information than the other. You don't want to get too far ahead of the headlights. You want to keep everybody synchronized and moving together forward. And so this is what we've been doing, and the work that you're doing, Dr. J, and your audience. We're only having this conversation today because you have allowed it, and your audience wants to hear it. And your audience, is no longer having this conversation, if you will, in the dark corners of some video game arcade place, but they're having it now at the water cooler. They're having it at the dinner table. They're talking to their friends and colleagues and family members, saying, "Hey, did you see that news report? And what do you think about it? And it's, what do you think?" That's happening. And that's the only reason why guys like Chris and I can do what we're doing, because folks like you are doing what you're doing. And you're pursuing this topic very, very seriously.
Absolutely. And I have been. It's been an interest all my life. I've been labeled the black sheep among family, even though they've seen things that they don't understand. It was a mass sighting. The entire country of Greece saw what we saw in 1990. Yet I was the only one that continued to read, watch, and then start interviewing everybody on this topic. I know you have to go at 30 minutes. There are a lot of people that have questions. But what I'll do is next time, if you could come on, we could stay longer. We could get to other people's questions. Is that okay for you?
Absolutely, Dr. J. You got it. My sincere pleasure.
Thank you so much. Now, before you go, I'm going to give you two things real quick. If you, hypothetically, if you were commander-in-chief, what would you do? And second, if you have a final message for everybody, what would you say?
Sure. Well, if I was commander-in-chief for a day, I would be doing a lot of things differently. And first and foremost, I would be I'd approach this from a whole of government approach. I would ask the National Science Foundation to come in. I'd have government grants to some of our best academic institutions. I would create a mini Manhattan Project, but for the purposes of good and something peaceful. I would ask our friends and allies to come in under the tent as well, and it'd have a big conversation with the American people. That's what I would do, amongst many other things that I would that would break down some of the dysfunction right now in Washington, D.C. I would there's quite a bit I would do, and then as far as my recommendations to your audience is, please think for yourself. This is I'm going to tell you this because there's some danger to this. There's a lot of hucksters and fraudsters in this community, and it's what has kept this conversation from being held at the high levels of government that you're seeing now, because there are people that want to protect their little fiefdoms. They've created a fairly successful cottage industry from misleading people and selling a false narrative. And if it was up to them, they would keep you in the dark. They would continue to have you follow that their narrative and not the truth. So